Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 on the tutorial series on how to make multiplayer games for a Discord bot using the lobby system for JDA or Rocket lobby system. Now, you'll notice that we now have our project right here, testbot, and of course we have our library. You can go ahead and just get rid of that, just hide that. So, a lot of people try to use a package when they make their first running class. For my sake, I'm just going to go ahead and make a class in the default package. If you want to shoot me, you can go ahead. So let's go ahead and name this actually let's go ahead and name it start. You can name it whatever you want, but I'm going to name it start. So let's go ahead and do that. And that is it. So let's go ahead and finish. And now we have our starting. So let's go ahead and go through what you normally do. Public, I am good at typing. Alright, so now we're here. So now we have our main method, which is what's going to be ran. So what I should probably mention is at the start here, put in throws exception within the main method. This is for a very, very important reason, and you want it to throw an exception. Otherwise, you're going to get a warning. Actually, you're going to get just a straight up error in the compiler. So I highly suggest you put that there. Alright. Now, right away you may notice I kind of flew past the public's class start and void main. This is not going to be a tutorial that covers how to use Java or the JDA. This is going to be a tutorial on how to use the lobby system. Those other things you can learn on your own. I can explain a little bit here and there, but for the most part, a lot of that process is done by you. Now the first thing you're going to import, because we're going to import a few things, the first thing you have to import is something pretty simple. Import net dot. Now before I continue, you may notice there is net dot devation. Anything labeled net dot devation is the stuff that devation made. That is the actual JDA. The stuff that is within the Rocket lobby system is located within net.jda. All of this right here is the Rocket lobby system. Just because it starts with JDA doesn't mean it's JDA. If you want the JDA stuff, you go to devation. Anyways, let's go ahead and put net.jda.startup. And then press enter. Make sure you have the asterisk here so you include everything, because we are going to need all the classes within startup. Alright, first thing you're going to do is you're going to do JDA.runBot. Now you may notice it is asking for application token. This is because we need the token that your application or your bot uses to start up. Again, I'm not going to tell you how to do that. You can find out on your own. Right now, we're just making the bot. So go ahead and get your token. I'm going to go ahead and get mine. 1 second. Alright, now before you start trying to do something sneaky, I should let you know that I have generated a new token by now. So if you try and use this token, it will fail. Alright, so now we have JDA.runBot. The next thing we're going to do is RLS, Rocket Lobby System, .start lobby system. And that's done. The last thing we're going to do is controller plugin dot run plugin. And there you go. And that's how you start up the bot. If you were to go ahead and run this bot right now, this is going to work properly. So let's run it. And as you can tell, it is now connecting. I highly suggest that you test to see if this happens. Of course, my tutorial bot's right here. It's inside, and everything's working perfectly fine. And now I go ahead and terminate that. Okay, so first things first. Whenever you add a game, you need to let the lobby system know that there is a new game. And when you let the lobby system know that there is a new game that will be created, or that will eventually exist, it will allow the lobby system to allocate memory in your RAM to store it. what that actually means is there is a map that includes all your possible games, and you access this map through a string. So, with that being said, in order to start having lobbies for the game that you're creating, you're going to go ahead and do this. Lobby dot add game. You're going to go ahead and add the specify the name of your game. For the example I'm going to be making, I'm going to make a rock paper scissors multiplayer game. So let's go ahead and make it rock paper scissors. Now you may notice there's an error. That's because you need to import. Now if you want to, you can just type out netjda_rls.lobby, but you can also just hover here, click this, and it imports it for you. So now we have added the game. We're going to make a rock paper scissors game. Now, any game ideas you have, I could suggest that go ahead and just like add it in, add game, blah blah blah, and it's like add a few if you want to. But if you don't do that, just remember, anytime you make a new game, always be sure to go to your main class that has your main method and use lobby.addGame. And there you go. So that first step is now taken care of. The next step is to add an event listener. If you have ever used the JDA before, you know that there needs to be an event listener so your bot actually knows what it's trying to do. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go to the default package again, add a class, and let's name this, you can name it whatever you want, but just name it something that allows you to know right away that it's a listener class. For me, I'm going to name it base listener, and that is it. So let's go ahead and finish that. This is going to be the first usage of the actual Deviation library, the actual JDA. We're going to type in is inside public class base listener. We're going to type out extends listener adapter. Remember to add capital L and capital A. Again, we get an error. That's because we need to import the listener adapter from net Deviation JDA core hooks. There we go. Now, listener adapter has some things that we can use. One of the things is public void on message received I before E except after C message received event. Alright, now again we get an error, got an import. Message received event, import that, and there we go. You may notice the green triangle. That's because we just have overridden a method that is located within the listener adapter. Anytime the bot receives a message, it will run this method, and this is how you will handle it. And of course, the message received event holds all the information you need to have to do whatever you need to do. So, first things first, whenever you make a JDA bot, always do event.getAuthor.isBot, it's a bot return. Always do that when you make a bot. Always. Okay. Now again, if I'm going a little fast, that's because I'm going based off the assumption that you know how to use the JDA, or at least the basics on how to use the JDA. I'm sorry if I'm going a little too fast. If you need to, you can go back on the video, rewatch a few parts to make sure you're typing out okay. Alright. So, with that being said, we now have this. So, right now, we have our base listener. Right here, this is our event listener. But the thing is, the bot that we're making doesn't know that this class exists. Of course, the program, the entire project knows that base listener exists, but as far as the bot is concerned, this is not existing at all. So we need to allow the bot to actually use this listener right here. So we need to tell the bot that this base listener exists, and how we're going to do that is by going ahead and going. Let's go ahead and go here. I'm going to go ahead and do JDA dot add event listener. It's asking for event listener object. We're going to create a new base listener. And there you go. Make sure this is saved. And there you go. Now the bot is aware of this thing's existence. And if you want to, you can go ahead and test that. If this becomes true, we can go ahead and event. Actually, for now, for simplicity, let's do system.out.println hello world. Hello world. I am good at typing. Hello world. Alright. So let's find out if the bot works. Let's go ahead and send a message. Woo. Hello world. And that means that the bot has successfully added the event listener. Let's go ahead and terminate that. So luckily, that means everything's fine. Alright. So now we have gotten this far. And if you wanted to, you could stop right now and go ahead and move on, but you may not know how to make the actual game because the games need to extend a specific class. And there's a few extra things that you may need to know while you're making your game. So, let's go ahead and start by creating a new package. We're going to go ahead and name this game for now. This is the game package. Now within this game package, we're going to go ahead and create a very brand new class. This class, we can name it whatever we want, but I'm going to name it Rock, Paper, Scissors Game. And now, you see this right here, superclass Java Lang object? You're going to want to go ahead and click on Browse because we're going to be extending a class. And choose a type. We're going to go ahead and hit backspace or remove it if you didn't do that. We're going to type out GAME okay, there you go. So right here we have game entity, net JDA RLS essentials. The essentials package has all the things that are essential to making a game work with this lobby system. And the first essential thing is this game entity class. We're going to go ahead and select that, press OK. Now we have our superclass. Now we go down here to which method stubs would you like to create. We're going to inherit abstract methods, and we're also going to, for this we actually don't need that. So let's go ahead and just inherit abstract methods, and that's all we're going to do. Right there, public, and that's it. And finish. Now we have a brand new class here inside game. Now you may notice that right away we already have errors. That's for a good reason. First things first, we need to add unimplemented methods. That's great. Now we have all the abstract methods that are located within a game entity. Now you might have to do a little bit of cleanup here, which is okay. Just a bit of cleanup, tightening. That. Now you may notice there's a lot of abstract methods. That's for a good reason. The lobby system isn't too complex, but it does require these things to make it work properly. And you will see why there's 5 different ones, because all of these have a good reason to exist. So, now, the next thing you're noticing is we're getting an error here. In both places, player class. What is player class? We don't have a player class. Well, that's because it doesn't exist. Player class is actually just a placeholder for a template. Not a template, sorry, that's C++. This is actually a generic, and this is just a variable name for that generic, and we will be passing something into this soon. In the meantime, just ignore this. You will notice we have process, get message style, is lobby AFK timer completed, max players, AFK report threshold, and get new player. To find out more about what these are for and what they're used for, you can do the following. Hold down Control on your keyboard, open Super Implementation. This will bring you to Game Entity Class. This is the class that you're inheriting, extending to. and it holds all the essential stuff to make the game work. If you need to find out more information about an abstract method, you can just hover over the method and it will let you know. It will let you read this stuff. Message style has it, lobby timer has it, max players doesn't, threshold, new player, all the stuff you can access here. Anytime you don't know anything about a specific method or you're confused, now luckily you can actually just hover over here as well. Luckily, this, go ahead, this is fine, this is here, you can just read it here. But if you want to, you can go to Super Implementation and it'll let you know here. Okay, with that being, getting that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about what all of these do. First thing, we have process. This is where all your game code is going to be located. Message style, you can read that. Lobby AK timer, you can read that. Max players is the amount of players your game is going to hold. The threshold, you can read that and you'll find out what it does and get a new player. And that's it. Okay. So, now let's go ahead and cover this right here. We have player class. What does this mean? Well, what we need to do, well, let me explain it like this. Every game class that you create, aka every game you make, is going to have a unique player class. Every single game needs player objects to hold various information about the player, because since you're going to have a undefined amount of players in the game, every player needs to have unique variables that make the game work. Because for instance, a game of tic-tac-toe may have different values compared to a game of rock, paper, scissors. Or let's say you're making a game like a card game. A game of cards may have card values that you need to store in a player class. Meanwhile, a normal basic game may not need any values at all. This is done on purpose, and this is why there's a generic here. Right now, we can't put anything inside these angle brackets. We're going to go ahead and create what we're going to be using. Now, for this terminology, if you don't understand any of this terminology, you don't have to worry. Just follow along with me, and everything will be fine. So we have game right here. Let's go ahead and create a package named player and finish that. The next thing we're going to do is create a new class, and this is going to be named RPS player. Now, once again, like we did with the game object, we're going to go ahead and go to the superclass section, click browse, delete that. Now, we're not going to use game entity. We're actually going to this time use PLAYER entity. There you go. There you go. So now we have player entity, which is inside the essentials package. We're going to click on that, we're going to select it, and then you're going to press OK. And lastly, we're going to go to here to which method steps, and you're going to go ahead and checkmark inherited abstract methods and constructors from the superclass. Make sure you have this checkmarked. Then we're going to go ahead and click finish. Go ahead and get rid of that. And there we go. So the first thing you're going to notice is this is auto-filled for you, which is public RPS player, user entity player, and then super. If you have any experience with Java polymorphism, this may make sense. But if you don't understand what this is for, you're going to be calling this constructor. Actually, I don't think you'll be calling this constructor, but just know that this is a constructor that is called internally in the lobby system, and it accepts a user entity object. And of course, when it uses this super, this is calling the super class's constructor, which if we go to player entity, which we can right click, open the declaration, you will notice that player entity has this constructor right here. when you call upon the superclass constructor, which we're passing in the user entity, we're going to go ahead and create that constructor here, which will assign these values. And that's it. In RPS Player, you can do anything you want. There are no abstract methods. All you have to do is just use it like any normal thing. If anything, you can just pretend that this player entity thing doesn't even exist. All you have to do is just create whatever variables you want. You can create whatever method you want. You could literally make a method that goes public void add 1. Then you can create public int woo is equal to 0, and then we can do woo plus plus, and we can call this. In fact, we'll do that in a moment. So we have RPS Player. Let's go back to RPS Game. So now that we have that created, we can go ahead and inside these angle brackets right here, we can delete player class and replace player class with RPS Player, or whatever class you used. And of course there's an error. We need to go ahead and import that, unless you put it in the same package, which you won't have to import. So we'll import that, and there you go. Now we go down here, notice player class is not resolved to a type, so let's go ahead and replace that with RPS Player, or whatever player object you made. And there you go. Now we have no more errors. Now, with everything being set up, we can go ahead and test to see if this is working properly. Now, if you want to find out if this is working properly, the way we're going to test to see if everything is running okay is we're going to use a variable that is located within game entity named players. Players is an array list, which means we can use the array list methods. .get right here, we can do 0. Now, as soon as we put a dot here, we should see woo and add 1. And sure enough, we can, and we don't get an error. That means everything is working fine. Everything should be a-okay. Let's go ahead and get rid of that, and get rid of that, and go ahead and get rid of that. So now that we know everything is working fine, we can go ahead and go back to base listener. So now we know that start has added the game RPS, and now we know that base listener right here is a-okay right here. So I don't know how you will handle syntaxes. It's up to you how you handle syntaxes, or how you handle how people join games. But for the demonstration, I'm just going to make this pretty simple. If event.get message.get content raw equals ignore case rock, paper, scissors. Actually, rock, paper, scissors. If it equals that, we're going to go ahead and do the following things. We're going to do this. Lobby dot join game. Now, you'll notice that there is a queue variable. If you look closely, it is asking for game queue extends game entity queue. You're noticing that it looks a little weird. You don't know what that means. All you have to put in here is new game queue. Q-U-E-U-E, and there you go. We're going to go ahead and import game queue. And now that we've imported game queue, we can look at what it's asking for. If we look at game queue, it is asking for a game entity, a string, and a user as its objects to pass in. So what is a game entity? Well, remember, a game entity is the exact same thing as this. Since we are extending game entity, your program will recognize RPS game as a game entity type. If you don't know what that means, just know that it pretty much just means you can pass the game object in. So what you need to do, we can go ahead and do new RPS game, which RPS game we're going to need to import once again. Next, it's asking, that's not right. Next, it was asking for a string. This string is actually the game name that we did here. Remember when we went to start and we did add game RPS, we're going to use this string right here. Let's go ahead and copy that. We're going to use this string and put it in here, RPS. This will tell the lobby system what game this player is being added into. And the last thing it's asking for is a user object, which we can get the user object by doing event.getAuthor. And that's it. Well, not quite, because you may notice it's saying GameQ is a raw type. Should be parameterized. If you've ever used ArrayList or list or anything that uses generics, we have to use angle brackets. So before we finish this, we need to add angle brackets and pass in RPS game. And there we go, we're done. What we basically just did is we called the join game method from the lobby class. We passed in the first argument, a new GameQ object, which has the generic RPS game. Then we created a new RPS game object. We told the join game method what game we're looking for, and then we passed in the author of the message, aka the person who will be joining the game. And we're done. That is how you make someone join the game. And now we're finished. This is seriously all you have to do to get someone to join the game. And that's all you have to do to identify what game the person's joining. Just create a thing that tells the program what game the person's trying to join, and then create this. And that's literally it. Now we go to join game. You'll notice it's asking for queue. And of course, if we go to game queue, you'll notice it's asking for game object, game name, and user. And that is literally all it needs. It needs the game object that you created. And remember, game class is a generic, so pretty much replace game class with RPS game. String game name, which is the game's name that you'll be using, and user. Alright, and that's it. For the time being, for this tutorial, that is all you have to know. You can go into RPS game and hover over and find out what all of these mean. However, there are some things that are not completely obvious, and I highly suggest you watch the next tutorial giving you an example on how to make a game. There are other tutorials after that that you will see, which will give you more ideas like how to make a currency system, or how to make people be able to leave games and join games, blah blah blah. But that's after. The next episode is really the last episode you should watch. Everything after that is optional to get more ideas. But for now, this is the end of this episode. And you could, if you want, to go ahead and just start making games. But again, I highly suggest you watch the next tutorial. So hopefully you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next episode. Goodbye.